The Creative Psychotherapist is the official podcast of the Creative Clinicians Corner, a practice-building resource for creative psychotherapists. TCP Podcast is the cast for creative, expressive, and experiential-focused psychotherapists curious to learn how to design, build, and scale a thriving private practice. Your host, Reina Lombardi, interviews successful therapists about the tools and strategies they have used to develop creative-focused practices. They also talk about the products, services, and side hustles they have developed using their knowledge and creativity to enhance their therapy practices, make a greater impact in their communities, and diversify their income streams. Welcome. Now here's your host, Reina Lombardi.
Welcome to the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. I'm Reina Lombardi. This is season 4, episode 2, and I'm really excited to welcome back 2 guests plus a third colleague. Shoshana, I am blanking on your last name. Simons. Yeah. Mimi Savage and Christine Brooks, all from the California Institute of Integral Studies. And we're here today to talk about a new program that you all have been developing and launching, or you will be launching here shortly. But before we do that, can I get each of you to give a short, brief recap just about who you are, the work that you do, what you're passionate about? And I'll start with you, Shoshana.
Yeah, hi again, Reina. I am actually in an interesting life transition. I am very excited about the launch of this new program, which has been percolating since I first joined CIIS in 2006, and I was teaching in the transformative leadership and transformative studies programs. I wanted to launch a program like this, and then I became the chair of the Expressive Arts Therapy program by all kinds of amazing things, and had a lot of work to do in rebuilding that program. And this particular project had to be put on the back burner. But my passion is really about expressive arts and how we can use them in praxis in all kinds of avenues, that by the nature of expressive arts, we know that they have so much potential for growth, development, healing, all of those words. How do we get them out of the box of therapy and into the larger culture and disseminate these skills? And so I'm very excited about this collaboration with my colleagues, Christine and Mimi, in making this happen.
I love that. Mimi, will you please share a little bit about your background and what you're excited about the program?
Yeah, I'll start with what I'm excited about is the collaborative nature of how this is all coming together, but also how we'll be teaching that, for coaches, and in the learning, how we will teach will be in a collaborative way. But who am I? I am a registered drama therapist. I have been on this show before because I worked with, and I was part of a faculty for UCLA Arts and Healing, which is now, goes by another name, Integrative Arts and Healing, but also just involved with the expo, right? With Barry Cohen and his crew. So I am at CIIS in the counseling psychology with Expressive Arts Concentration, and I am a core faculty there, associate professor. And yeah, that's about all she wrote. I am in Los Angeles. I'll add that. Where am I? What's my location? And I'm excited about how we are building this curriculum and the launching of this program. I'm looking forward to telling you more about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And Christine, a little bit about you. And
Sure. Thank you, Reina. So I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. Our school is...
Oh, that's my hometown.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right. We've got some notes to make off.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And so our school is actually, our main campus is in San Francisco. So I kind of want to highlight that I'm modeling a little bit of the intention of this new program, which is that it's an entirely online program, and that we really are excited about the fact that this can be global because of that there isn't a residential requirement in the program. So I'm kind of living proof of our concept in a lot of ways, and as is Mimi, who is remote as well. So that's one piece. I've been with California Institute of Integral Studies in the Expressive Arts program for about a decade now, and was trained clinically, have a PhD in clinical psychology, but I have had a coaching practice for more than a decade as well. I intentionally went into coaching, and I work with a group called Ignite Your Potential that's nationwide as well. And for me, coaching is the place where I just really find a lot of joy. I find a lot of joy working with people who are right on the brink of change or right on the brink of transition in a way that the coaching model serves well, which is that the idea of possibility and what if and experimentation and creativity. So kind of pivoted a little bit out of a more problem-focused or problem-centered paradigm into this sense of possibility, which is a place where I really thrive personally, and I love working with people in that way. And then, of course, the arts are just such a natural fit into that. And my background is in acting from way back in the day, before I became immersed in the field of psychology. And so it's through the arts. Everything in the program is through the arts. Everything in the work that I love to do and the way of living that I really want to invite others to consider is this a way of thinking about change and transformation and growth through the arts. So that's the central focus of what I'm primarily engaged in, both personally and professionally these days.
Very exciting. So the program is a master's in expressive arts coaching with a focus on community building. Is that correct?
So we're calling it the MA in Expressive Arts Coaching and Community Building. We're kind of pairing them as opposed to saying that this is like a concentration, because we see them as a whole, or that you can't do one without the other. But that we are working with people who might be interested in one-on-one coaching, or might be interested in working with groups or community organizations or institutions. So the flexibility of where it's applied is what we wanted to capture in the name of the program as well.
Love that. So I know before we kind of hopped on the live call, we were talking and I said, I've not heard of a master's in a coaching model, but you shared with me that there are some out there. What does that look like exactly for therapists that have maybe been entertaining this idea of adding coaching to what they do? What does that look like in terms of this program?
Well, coaching, I think there can be, for therapists, maybe the idea that there's an overlap between the two. I think what we are really wanting to emphasize is these. Yes, of course, there's a lot of commonalities, but they also are distinct in their own right. So I think for a therapist, and I've been training a lot of therapists of late in the last few years through my work with Northwest Creative Expressive Arts Institute, running a NarrARTive Expressive Arts coaching certificate. And it's been mostly therapists who've come through that. And for them, it's been the awareness that we're really looking for people who are seeking coaching. I think as Christine is saying, are generally at a point of like they know they're at a what next point in their life generally. What's the next leap? What's the next step? And the focus isn't so much on the what happened in the past. It's very much focused on the now and where are we going to. And there, of course, are paradigms within psychotherapy that are focused in that way, but they're not necessarily the dominant paradigms in our field. And we are always making those distinctions as therapists from a therapeutic point of view as to, which approach are we going to use? We're required to do diagnostics. We're required to be thinking within a pathology model in this country. And this is really not about that. This is really outside of that paradigm. So we just want to be clear that this is a new opportunity for therapists to do a both and, like take the kind of some basis of those beautiful listening skills, but we're really going in a new direction. And also we mentioned the fact that the three of us all have a background in improvisational theater. I think that this is something that really lends itself to the coaching model. What are we co-creating together? How do we yes and into the future? And that also relates to this being coaching and community building, because we are very much about the collaborative relationship, not just between client and therapist, but the assumption that the client is in deep collaboration with everyone else in their lives. We really are using a systemic model, and that systemic model also builds on to us as artists, and particularly actors who know that I am because we're as good as everyone who's part of our ensemble. We can't be the sage on the stage, or the one who's standing out from the crowd on the stage. This is about the we, and that very much informs our praxis.
Yeah, that's a great segue. I just wanted to add to that, to what Shoshana was saying, is yes, and I think that's a great question, Reina, about the clinical therapist. But I envision attracting those who have no inclination, no idea, no even that much of a wonderment around the clinical practice, right?
Yeah.
Because of the liberatory practice that we're really engaging in this program, which is societal, right? So the social justice aspect, the restorative justice aspect. So we're going to be attracting, ideally, also those people who are really interested in what is going on in their own community or other communities in which they want to assist. And again, the arts, what a quick, wonderful way to access, I know it's not a favorite word of Christine, but the healing. The healing that occurs when we interact through the arts. And so our model will include arts therapies, creative arts therapies, all of them, drama therapy, art therapy, visual art, the multimedia, but dance movement and music, all of that will be incorporated in this. It's compact in this program. So I'm envisioning someone who is like, gee, I'm already maybe doing this kind of work. Maybe I'm a social worker who's not so interested in the clinical, but in, this community of elders, or this community of people who are, have been incarcerated, who need to, figure out a way to function in society. And to earn an income and to provide for family, or etc. All of those scenarios and populations. How do I help those people? I'm not interested in so much even in doing the one-on-one, although we are going to cater to that as well. And because I'm teaching group in this course, that's what I'm picturing, right? And I'm picturing using sociometrics, quick and ideal and accessible ways of seeing who's in the space and who am I in the space with others, and how can I implement that when I'm facilitating others in a fair and equitable way. So yeah, I just imagined, I wanted to segue off of that question for you.
Yeah, I love that. I do think that there's plenty of people out there that would be attracted to this type of program that don't necessarily want to do the clinical piece of things, but want to have training in how do I utilize all of these different artistic modalities in a way that helps people, where and also in a way that doesn't get them in trouble, right? Because there's so many legal aspects of the clinical kind of piece of things.
And still do no harm.
Yes.
Right. And Reina, I think what you're saying there is so important, and something that we haven't touched on yet, which is why a master's and not a certificate level training. Like, what's
Yes.
the distinction there and what's important about that? And we're leaning toward that as we're all talking our way through this. But one of the things that really stands out to me is the depth of education that we're able to offer in the spaciousness of 4 semesters, right? It's a very tight and compact program, as Mimi was saying. It's 8 units a semester for 4 consecutive semesters. So that's fast, and that is tight. And at the same time, a lot of certificate programs are a couple of weeks here and there, or might be a longer program, but might not have the bandwidth in the offering to go to the level of depth around the various models in coaching, really teaching to the competencies of various coaching organizations, so that we're doing best practices of what a professional coach is expected to do in the field, and living up to competencies as they've been stated by these international organizations for coaching in particular, along with arts-based organizations' competencies. So we're doing a both and approach here of saying, in this program, the depth of learning that we can offer relates to best practices in coaching and best practices in expressive arts praxis, or applied expressive arts. And we have the room to do that, which is just delicious, really, and exciting. And there's been a trend in coaching in particular. Choice Magazine just reported on this over the summer, of the need for more higher education in the coaching profession, the need for master's level education. They've done a lot of studies and have pointed out that that depth of knowledge and that level of competency is necessary with the fact that coaching is growing exponentially as a profession. And so we feel like we're filling a need that the profession is calling out for, and honored to do so.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
It is. It is. It's a new wave.
Yeah. And we're riding the wave. We're on the surfboards. Also, how I like this part of having it accessible internationally, right? Whatever time and making it so that it is also aimed for the working profession. That is really important to me, the access of the book. I got very excited about that. And yet I was gonna say, not feeling like still that you're in a silo, right? That you're alone out there, just typing away and learning from a program that's already. We do emphasize, the interactive within the courses themselves. You were going to say something, Shoshana. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It's the Zoom thing, or it's the video recording thing. I was thinking about credentialing. This question of why a master's degree is about the importance of credentialing in in a field that is really generally unregulated, and there's a growing instances of malpractice, and the need to have proper, appropriate ethical regulation. And I'm from the UK originally. I'm actually going back to live there, and I'll still be teaching in the program. And every country has different regulations in relation to, well, particularly therapy, mental health, right? And we know within the United States, it's a patchwork of different requirements, state to state.
Yes, so confusing sometimes.
Right, very confusing. And what's the point, and who's it for, and who's it protecting? With all of those questions, I think that we have an opportunity with coaching, with this being a young field, to see that there's an international credential through the International Coaching Federation. And that there's the potential there to be able to reach folks all over the world, to grow our intercultural and cross-cultural competence and humility, and for folks, especially because this is an online program, to be in their home country, and to be in interaction with folks all over the world and be co-learners across culture, knowing that we're not going to be restricting folks to how they can be credentialed. The program itself is, can meet the requirements of will prepare them at the basic level to be able to pursue international licensure, credentialing, not licensure, credentialing in the field.
We're so trained, aren't we?
Yeah. Feels like we're in a new paradigm,
Yeah.
and even as we're speaking it as we build it in terms of where the field is going.
And that master's will, well, if you want it, might allow you to, depending on what you do with it and what other, credentials you have or degrees you have for teaching, and it is a master's, right? So it puts you at another level when it comes to academia. So that's helpful, that's useful, that's practical.
Mm-hmm.
We also need scholars in expressive arts coaching.
Yes.
We need the people who are leaning toward research or leaning toward program evaluation or even program creation. We are doing skill building around grant writing and that kind of thing. So we want this to have utility right from the very start, just like you do in a coaching process. Coaching is about putting the work to work in your life right from the very beginning. And our philosophy is that we're doing that in this program too, where everything that you're learning is going to be applicable immediately and in the real world and in your practice, because coaching is a process where you can do the work without credentialing. So there's a tension here, right? There's a tension in terms of like, well, then why the masters? But the reality of it is that this can up-level your practice. So you may have a really strong, sturdy practice already, but how might becoming an expert in expressive arts up-level your practice? How might getting these areas of knowledge around both practice skill, but also research and writing and grant writing and the business side of things, which will be folded into this curriculum as well? How does that up-level you in a way that takes your practice into something that you couldn't have dreamed of without it?
I love that. I really appreciate the integration of the business aspects of things. I think, at least for me, obviously, that's what my podcast is about, is like helping people to see that you can create your own business in this field. But those were not skills that were provided in grad school. And I understand there's only a certain amount of time and we need to get lots of education, but I think just having one class, even if it was just a single credit class, like a little intensive that ended your, grad school with, here's some basics. If you are considering operating your own practice, operating your own business in the field, these are some basic things that you need to be aware of right now, because obviously things change and evolve and we have to change with them. Otherwise, we won't continue to grow and be successful. So the fact that you're integrating that in there is really wonderful, because I can't imagine there's lots of like jobs out there that's like looking for an expressive arts coach. Like the intent is you would be creating your own business out of this.
Right. Yeah, and that's not, you're right. I can see Job Indeed and Monster.com or whatever saying we want an intern, or we want, someone who's in LPCC or whatever. It's out there. Sometimes not so much though, depending on where you live, with added expressive arts, and that's
true.
Right. And so you kind of had to, often you're finagling your way in there and convincing whomever that I can use music therapy in here. It would be really helpful, or poetry therapy. In our master's in the expressive arts counseling psychology, we actually do have a 1 credit that I actually
that's awesome.
I developed and created. It's a 1 credit intensive, and they leave with a letter, a formal letter, a website, at least the outlining of it, if not the full on thing, and some other things. They make a choice, but whatever they deem practical. And so we couldn't imagine coaching not having that, right? So
yeah,
it makes complete sense. And sometimes, I don't know, since the pandemic, people do seek out, there are those platforms that seek out coaches and get you clients even. So this is a paradigm. It's a new, I think the pandemic too, during that time, there was a shift. People were seeking out assistance in many places, often not in clinical places or with those that way. So, yeah. You're right. I think, Reina. I mean, it would be ideal if we could all have that one credit course intensive on how to do the business, as well as what Shoshana was mentioning about learning from each other in an intercultural way, the cultural humility aspect of the literature that we're learning from. I teach human development, and it's just not there often.
Right.
Got to seek out specifically or hodgepodge a lot of literature to make certain that all folks are represented, and that wherever I am, whether I'm from the dominant society, culture or not, that I'm understanding who I am. Again, I'm saying the same thing, who I am in this space with my clients. So we're making certain that that's part of this curriculum as well.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. The things that are missing from what we've learned in the clinical world, we have that knowledge as academics, and wanting to embrace, understand, and make it make it a little different. Make it a lot different.
And there's an evolution, particularly in the United States, but this is an international movement around recognizing the importance of arts and health.
Oh yeah.
NOAA is a large organization, the National Organization of Arts and Health, and many other places. There are some really great programs. The programs have tended to focus more public policy or public health orientation. So we're adjacent to that, but not the same thing. But I really see us as part of that larger conversation. In a way that maybe clinical work has a different kind of tension there that we simply just don't hold in a coaching paradigm or in a community building paradigm. So I think that there's a growing awareness of the fact that not all jobs are clinical by definition. And we then are helping people to imagine how they fit into these new developing arts and health initiatives out in the world as well. So I think that that's an important element.
That's a good point, because I'm just thinking of Ping Ho, my colleague who started UCLA Arts and Healing Now, Arts and Health Initiative. And she has a master's in public health, and she's just all about expressive arts. And her collaboration with Barry Cohen, who is the person who facilitates, produces all of these conferences for expressive arts, and those interested in it. Arts and health, social prescribing. Shoshana has visited, and goes back to England and reports back on all the social prescribing that is now, very popular in that country, but coming to us and becoming quite, acceptable. But I'm thinking also of all of those folks, masters of public health. Those masters are becoming really popular. So there's a reason for that.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, about understanding the shifts. Like, I think what one of the things our program, the Expressive Arts Therapy program, has done well is to always be looking at the horizon. What's coming down? What are the shifts that are happening? What are the shifts taking place in the mental health field, and the limitations of the languaging around that? When, health and wellness, what are we really talking about? And sort of trying to take that into account. The challenges that have come through COVID, post-COVID, the level of burnout among practitioners across the healthcare sector, across the education sector, the exponential need that we foresee of folks with these skills. Whatever we want to we label them different things, but we know what they are. There's a set of skills that we know are really help people do well, survive and do more, thrive. How do we disseminate those skills when they're going to be more and more needed, and there might be a few people who can actually access a particular label that's more expensive and more targeted and more narrow? And I'm also thinking about, my background my doctoral work is actually in human and organizational systems. So this is very much in between the spaces for me of being a drama therapist and a therapist, but really having a large systems focus and thinking about HR, for example, and the amount of folks who are basically coaches as their careers in large corporations and organizations, and who don't necessarily have the skills that they would like to have. What a beautiful way to try to retain talent. to be
Mm-hmm.
the employer who will give some funding for their employees who are in the HR field, or supervision, training, and development work to come and get a master's in coaching. It's value added for companies, and wellness-based, employee-based well-being. This is such a different world than it was 20, 30 years ago. These skills, these services are often available through workplaces, making them more accessible.
Yeah, my goodness, I'm thinking of when I used to work in acute settings, especially inpatient hospital settings. Oh my goodness, how wonderful this would have been. I remember being in those spaces and working, 6 days a week, and thinking it would be really great if we all, nurses and doctors could have a retreat or something just once a month or once every 2 months. I was, desperate because I saw the burnout. I saw also, sometimes the callous behavior that happens, and throwing no shade, it's fatigue. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's often the case in these acute settings. There's no checks and balances sometimes, other than supervision that is kind of basic, but we needed that. We needed that so much. And longevity is something to think about. How do we sustain our careers? We got to pay our mortgages, right? Or our
Right.
rents. And how do it makes complete sense. I know, this gets mixed up with all sorts of big medical, big pharma, big everything. But for everyone that works in those spaces, boy, that would have been life-saving for, really for me. It would have been huge.
I feel like it's important even in the small spaces. Like my practice is small, but we make a point to do those things every other month or so. We get together for an in-person meeting and we do something. Couple months ago, we went to a rage room, which is obviously not like constructive, but that's what people wanted to do because of everything going on. And it was a really wonderful, like, team building collective experience. But we come together, we paint, we do vision boards, but we make that part of our regular coming together within the practice. We may not see each other. We're like ships in the night. Everybody's on a different schedule, or you're with clients, so you don't see people that much. But we make sure to come together every so often to do those kinds of things to replenish in community. And I think that is what stands out a lot to me in the name of your program, is that integration of the community aspect of it, because we heal in community. We heal through connection. We regulate through each other. And that piece really stands out. And I'd love to hear you share a little bit about how you integrate that into the curriculum. How do you teach people how to build community and why that's a pillar and it's so important?
I love that question.
But
I see you nodding and nodding.
Yes, because it's really the foundation, I think, of what our program may be offering that may be different than other offerings. Our starting point isn't the individual, although of course the individual is central always. But the individual is never an individual. An individual is always part of a nexus of relationships, and we are all, we're all knitted together. So we use a relational neuroscience model. We're grounded in relational cultural theory out of the Stone Center. And we also, we were also drawing from liberation psychology, liberation theory, and also narrative approaches. So it's very systemic. It's really the place where collaborative and constructionist theories and practices come together that address that integrate neuroscience. The neuroscience has really come in to support what we already knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of this is in response to the there's a tagline right now, or a very public statement that we are in a crisis of loneliness or an epidemic of loneliness. And what people forget, one of my areas of expertise is in the science of friendship. And what people forget is that loneliness is not about being alone. Mm-hmm. Loneliness is actually the perception of social isolation. It's only the perception of it. It's not the literal social isolation. And so this program is constantly creating ways for us to think about and address, what is my perception of self in relationship to others? What is my perception of myself in relationship to the people I care about, to my community, to the places where I work? And how do I want to shift that or understand it in a different way so that I am transforming from surviving to thriving?
I love that.
And we bring in a lot of different tools that are relational assignments. So, for example, community, I'll be teaching the class on relational cultural approaches to coaching, and laying the foundation. How do we do an assessment? Conventionally you're doing a one-on-one assessment, but we also incorporate relational cultural assessment. So the research on connection, who you may have 100 people in your life, but if you don't feel connected to them, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. In fact, it's worse. Who are the top 10 people in your life? How do they bring you joy? Do you feel heard? Mm-hmm. Really, we're going to be taking them through an assessment of their relational cultural field and seeing what ahas they may have as a result of that. Not what ahas we have as the coach. It's really about helping them sense make. And then also the beautiful work around community genograms. And we bring them to life using sand tray and sociometrics, and just having that sense of who is part of my social world. What are the resources, identifying resources that one has in community, however we define that. And that might be the springboard for, again, the ahas for them. Oh, I see that there's some pieces missing in my community. And that might be then, do you want to set a goal around that? What will it look like? Can we create an image of that? Can we create a sand tray around that, of your preferred future, of what that's going to look like when your life is populated and supported? What will it look like? So we're always working in between the individual and the collective.
Exactly.
I'm imagining that sand tray and adding some role play in there and role reversal, so we have perspective,
Yes.
So, yeah.
And so often I'm working with clients who, when asked questions like, who are your resources? Witnessing these incredibly successful people kind of go blank around a question like that really indicates that the systemic approach is critical to helping people see that they are not solely responsible and alone in creating transformation in their own life. Who can they lean into and on? Who do they draw from? Who are their inspirations? But also who practically is there to support change when the change gets difficult or challenging. And the arts can be part of that too. Your inspirational playlist, your tree of life illustration that helps you really understand the resourcing that you have. There's so many tools that we can use creatively to help people break through the I don't know that is often not resistance, but simply that it's not word ripe yet, or that they've never been given the opportunity to even consider the question.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. There's I don't know can mean so many different things.
It's my favorite phrase in practice. If somebody says, I don't know, it's my invitation to lean right in and get through it. What version of I don't know are we up to today? Let's talk about it. Let's play with it. Because I don't know usually is almost never, I don't know the information. I don't know is almost always, no one's ever asked me this before, or I don't trust you enough to tell you an answer to that question, or you've hit my wall of my capacity to go any further right now. So I don't know is the greatest gift that we can get. It's not them saying, I don't want to work with you. It's them saying, we need to slow this down. We need to get into right relationship again so that we can proceed from here.
It's so beautifully stated. Yeah, I'm writing that down.
Gems.
Yeah, really gems. So for folks that would be considering applying to your program, when are you officially going to be starting your first semester? What's the process that they have to go through to apply? Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I'll kick it off. I'm chairing the program, so I've got all this just really handy.
Oh, perfect.
So, since we are live streaming today, which is such a great opportunity, we're actually having a public online event next Wednesday, the 23rd, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, which is our launch party, where we are showing the curriculum, doing some experientials, and celebrating that CIIS really believes in this program and is like ready to take this into the world. So that's super exciting. And Reina, I think you mentioned that you'll be posting a link for that in the chat.
Absolutely. In the show notes, we'll put the link to that. We'll put the link to the program.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so our first cohort will be kicking off in January of 2026. So our application cycle is opening this summer. People can already hop on the website and get information and get in touch with our amazing admissions counselor who can answer questions and give more detailed information. We're accepting people with a bachelor's degree. So we also at CIIS have a bachelor completion program, or a way to earn a bachelor's if that is a hurdle to overcome in order to move forward with master's level education. So there's all kinds of ways to enter into the program.
Exciting.
And so we really want to make this available to as many people as possible in that way. But admissions, we're doing information sessions and this launch party now through the summer, and our in the fall is when we'll be really building our first cohort and welcoming people in January.
Right. So the interview process will occur after one applies. How about the scholarships, Christine?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So our school has this wonderful program called the Inaugural Cohort Scholarship. And so when we launch a program like this, the first incoming cohort receives a scholarship or a stipend toward their tuition for the full time that they're in the program. So they would receive a discount off of the tuition for all 4 semesters of the program.
That's amazing.
It is. And thank you, CIIS, for being so great.
Right. And there are other scholarship opportunities once, one is admitted and matriculates, but, yeah.
Yeah. But that's for the whole group.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Scholarships are so hard to come by, and financing in education is often a barrier for people that want to do things, but then it's not always easy. So having
go ahead, Reina.
I was just saying, having a scholarship, I think, at least in this, as you first get started, I hope that's helpful in attracting a nice number of students for you.
Very much so. Yeah.
And in this day and age too, with, where we're going with education, it is, I think it incentivizes. So I think it's really important. It's a lovely thing. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. Something around the scholarship. Oh yeah, the support system. The program is a CIIS, master's level program, and so there's a lot of support at CIIS for the student. There's a care team. There are ways to support you in your scholarship, so that if you have any needs that are special, that they're considered. Again, this idea of being siloed because it's an online program is not something. I remember experiencing a little bit of this in a certificate program. I was just basically at home alone, reading and writing, and I knew no one in that cohort, and really didn't in any way interact. Basically, this vibe is different, and the support in the university is different. We don't want you to feel isolated.
Absolutely. And Mimi, you made me think of something else too, which is, I do think that sometimes, based upon our undergraduate experiences, we might feel a little bit shy about it being a master's program, right?
Yes.
Being like, oh, it's graduate school. And that can be also a sense of like, am I qualified to do that? So we have a Center for Writing and Scholarship at our school, which is really great in terms of helping people refine or find their academic voice if they feel like maybe they don't have one. So that's an amazing resource. But also that this is an applied master's degree.
Right.
This is about skill building and about learning the practice and the application of the practice along with the scholarship piece. So we have an artist scholar practitioner model that Shoshana really developed. I'm going to, call your name, Shoshana, about this, where the scholarship is a piece of the bigger picture of why the master's exists. So it isn't the leading edge only. It is a component of this wider picture of being a more holistic view of what graduate education really looks like. And so if people are feeling like, oh, that'd be cool, but I'm worried about being this whole master's degree piece.
Sure.
To just highlight that we are an alternative educational environment. We do believe that there are multiple ways of doing graduate level scholarship. We do believe that these are learned skills and not things that we expect you to come in with, but that we do expect you to develop as you're learning in the program. And we're here to support that development.
Yes. Can I piggyback on that now? So if we're warming in here to this whole theme, this idea, the word art, and we often talk about it in expressive arts therapy. It's like a misnomer. Like, how do you really name what it is we're doing? And we started talking more about aesthetic ways of knowing, soma aesthetic ways of knowing, and that is scholarship. So for me, when I thought about this scholar artist practitioner model, I was really thinking about the artist, that aesthetic way of knowing, these aesthetic ways of knowing as the bridge between the information, the scholarship, and the practice. That it transforms through engagement in sensory making, sense making. We're literally sense making, right? Whether it's theater or whether it's through fine arts or through doodling or listening to music, we're processing and sense making. So the way we teach in our program is also through these multiple ways of sense making. It's not over here, isn't scholarship over here, and you're going to be in these boring classes and read all this boring stuff and then regurgitate papers. That's not what we do. Right. We use these highly different ways of sense making.
Yeah, it's integrated. It's got to be integrated. There's a meta level to this. And how are we going to send you out into the world as a coach if you're not doing it as well and if you're not learning through it? So going back to that constructionist and constructivism that we embrace in the way that we teach, the pedagogy that we have. Yeah, it can't be separate. There's no way. That is the traditional way, though, right? Here's your art part, here's your studio art part. I know art therapists, right? They're nodding their head, and here's this part, and then, oh, how do we mix those parts? And even multiculturalism, remember, that's the phrase, and that's that part, but integrated, woven together, right? That's delicious. That is delicious.
We've got delicious today. That's exciting.
Two delicious dishes.
Yeah, but I guess that really reflects, the name of your program overall, right? The Institute for Integral Studies, that like part of your model is to be considering all of these different components and integrating them in a very rich way, giving people a really deep and meaningful experience when they're done with their learning.
Are they ever done with their learning, Reina?
Well, no, obviously not. But they're learning in your program.
Indeed. Yeah. When you finish your 32 units, you will get your degree and move on. But we hope you'll come back and hang out with us.
Yeah, but we want you to hit the ground ready.
Yes, very much so.
So I'm going to put the link to the program in the show notes. It is a long one. It's www.ciis.edu/academics/department-expressive-arts-community-building. If that's too much for you to listen to, don't worry about it. It's in the show notes. The link will be there, and you can go to their website, check out the program that they've developed, and hopefully some listeners will sign up,
Hopefully.
join,
Yeah,
and
would
share with other people that might be interested.
Yeah.
Share with others. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely know I will be sharing. I have a couple of people in mind that have been asking questions about coaching and also expressive arts and wanting additional education in that realm. So
Yeah. At the conferences as well. I'll be in Chicago in May presenting, but I encounter folks who are like, I don't want to be a therapist. I love using the arts, and they keep coming to the conferences, and they have maybe coaching, or maybe they're yogis. I don't know. There's all sorts of folks, right? And they're like, but I want to do more.
right. Yeah, this gives people the opportunity to do more and integrate the arts in that process in an ethical, grounded, really thoughtful way. So thank you all for being here and sharing about this with me and with listeners. And I really hope it's successful. I think that it's the right time. The timing couldn't be more perfect for it. As we're like transitioning, even in mental health, I think we're going to see a lot of changes in terms of like technology coming in to this space, and therapists looking for other ways to really be able to work in sustainable ways. And this is a wonderful way to do it.
Thank you so much, Reina.
Yeah, thanks,
Yes.
Reina.
It's been a real joy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you all. I'm going to kick us off the stage and play our outro music for listeners. But thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For show notes, downloads, and additional resources, head over to the website at www.creativeclinicianscorner.com.